I'm going to quote Jody Raybo Wilson. Very short, thank you. You can sit now. Indigenous women have a critical role to play in creating a better future for all Canadians. So we thank you for continuing to be our leaders, be our guidance, and looking for that, always looking for that better future. But you are our base. You are what makes our world go round. So, greetings, of course, on behalf of your executive at the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, and on this next 3 days, treaty right to education. That's what this is, our treaty right to education. And that's what our forefathers put on the table in terms of what we would exchange some of our freedom for at that time in history. And it's important to note that what our forefathers negotiated was the spirit and intent of that treaty right to education. What does that mean? To Muniao at the time, that meant very narrow. To our leaders, it was a schoolhouse on the reserve. Cunning of the white man in Treaty 4 was now mentioned, meaning get that Western teachings, but always have it based in our culture and our tradition. So that's our right. From Mushum and Kukum all the way down to the newborns, that is our treaty right anytime we go forward. And each and every one of you here are very much responsible for ensuring that our children know that they have that treaty right. We have challenges right across Saskatchewan when it comes to education because of that institution that started in the 1800s, and I'm talking about residential schools. The shadow that we continue to live in that residential school era, but it's getting better. Every day is getting better. Our children are teaching us older ones how it's okay to say that I love you. Okay to say I love you to your relatives, to your brother, to your sister. Okay to kiss your brother, your sister. It's no longer in residential school what they call piggy. That's piggy, so don't do that. But now we can do that. And it's our children that taught us and continue to teach us that it's okay to do a lot of things that we weren't allowed to do in residential school. But they are okay in our culture. So I acknowledge each and every one of you, and for the next 3 days, wish you well and continue that good work each and every day for our little ones and for our communities. I go say, hi, hi, masicho. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chief. Before we go on to our next speaker, I was going to say a joke. I was asking Liz, should I say this joke? And she goes, go for it. So I was saying, what kind of day are we going to have? It was a full moon, plus it's National Women's Day. So watch out, men. We're on fire today. So make sure it's all kind words. With that, we'll bring up Office of the Treaty Commissioner, Mary Culbertson.
Anin, good morning. In Dejanikazu and Mary Musco Culbertson. In Tunse Kizikus. My name is Mary Culbertson. I am from Kizikus First Nation. I'm Anishinaabe and Irish and Scottish and whatever else got thrown into the blood there. And I'm very thankful for being here today. And miigwech for our elders and the beautiful grand entry. I was able to catch that, and your drums are so beautiful. The Cree drum and the Dene drummers, so beautiful. And it's wonderful to see so many beautiful women here today too. And I was amazed when I was standing at the back of how many women there are, right? And I know we always hear this. It does take a woman to get the job done. And this room is full of you women who are doing those jobs in our nations. Thanks. No offense, males, my male friends, our leadership, I'll come visit you after. And many condolences to the losses in our families and nations as well. We have a lot of loss, we have a lot of grief, but we have lots of love too. And when your MC was talking about self-care, we definitely need to pay attention to that in education as educators, whether it's in our homes, we're educating our families, our children, our grandchildren, or whether it's in our organizations, our institutions, our schools. Because your attitude determines your day, right? Your feelings. We all know how it is to wake up and you have a horrible day. And I was so busy this morning. I've been sick over a month, off and on. I got to this TLE conference and I was going to go in and make great remarks. And then I seen this booth there. The province had a booth, showed all the maps of all the minerals, critical minerals, the lands. And I was so offended, right? And after this year, I'm not treaty commissioner anymore. I'm going to move on and I'm going to do other things because I want to be able to help my people more. In this job, you're supposed to sit in between the parties and try report on that relationship. But when you have governments who don't want to tell you anything because they realize you're not going to report on what they want you to, it's very hard. So balancing those scales of injustice is very difficult to do. We need to have an equitable relationship. So I talk the way I do because we need to have equity. And if I was a white treaty commissioner, like all the ones before me who just kind of sat in the office and didn't pay attention to our communities, what kind of service is that? Leadership is being of service. You grieve with your nations when they are hurting. You celebrate with each other when there's celebrations. And we're supposed to support each other, and that means in our healing. We know the damaging effects that a broken treaty right to education has given us. We had a residential school education instead of an education that would prepare our people for university. The government of Canada does not believe that there is a treaty right to post-secondary education. To them, it is just a policy, and they are very firm in their decision. There is no treaty right to post-secondary education. But when our ancestors negotiated treaties, they wanted us to know the cunning of the white man. That means doctors, lawyers, they're going to space, well, we can make astronauts too. Everything that they can educate themselves in, our ancestors wanted us to know, but they wanted us to keep who we were. We know we've lost our languages, we've lost many ceremonies, we've lost our traditional ways of governing ourselves, our traditional laws, our indigenous laws. We've lost so many of those things, but yet we are fighting every day to exist, to build our places bigger and better, and to serve our communities, our children, to make sure that they don't feel the way we did when we were in classrooms. Right? Wondering why the teacher was giving you a brown piece of paper and all the other kids got white colored pieces of paper to draw their hands. I know my daughter coming home in grade 2 and showing me I was the only one my teacher gave a brown piece of paper to. Or my grandson coming home now saying, my teacher said kids didn't die from people killing them in residential schools. And I told him, well, your teacher's a liar. And then he goes, okay, can you go talk to her? So I did. And that changed their tune pretty quick. So we have to keep educating. We have to take on that responsibility of always making sure we're telling the truth about what happened to our people. We know that because of the oral histories. We know it because our elders have told us, our mushums, our cookums, our aunties, our uncles. They have told us what they've seen. We know the stories, and it's up to us as educators to keep that piece of history and truth in our classrooms. So we have to take care of ourselves so we can talk about it, because it's very hard to talk about those things because we are all still healing, right? Every single one of us in this room, we have trauma from schools, from residential schools, from our parents being survivors, from many of us being survivors. Right? So self-care is so important when you're an educator, when you're a teacher, because you have all these little hearts, you have all these little minds that we're shaping, and we're responsible for those in our communities, in our schools, in our nations. And thank you, Vice Chief Lara, for acknowledging International Women's Day and all the women who are in the room, because it is very important we value ourselves and each other. Because if we don't value ourselves and each other, then how do we expect that society out there to respect our own women? If we don't respect each other, then it's okay when they find us murdered, when they find us missing. Right? So we have to hold each other up in those areas. We have to support each other. We have to end lateral violence in our communities and make it lateral kindness. We have to end how we treat each other in places, because I know how it feels, right, to have anger and to have hatred in your heart, and those issues we've got to clear out. It's so important. All of us need to address it. We can't just say, oh, I'm good, I'm fine. Because believe me, I do that too. So it's our responsibility to talk about those treaty rights the government says don't exist. Right? And tell our kids it's their turn after us. They have to keep fighting. And there'll be more Indigenous treaty commissioners after me. It won't be just that. We had one, that was good. You guys got a woman, you got an Indian. We're going back to old white men now. And we have to make sure we're occupying those places. Because if we're not occupying those places, our ways of knowing, our ways of understanding each other and trying to make equitable relationships just goes away. We have lots of work to do on ourselves and in our communities, and education will never stop, right? Whether it's our land-based education, which, like Vice Chief DeRocher said, that's who we are. It is who we are. Right? And we have to kind of go away from those classrooms where there's ceilings and take our kids out of those classrooms sometimes so they can appreciate the land, the earth, and so they can love the land. That's how I grew up loving the land, was just being outside, right? Getting sent outside and getting yelled at, go play outside. Today's day and age, you don't tell your kids go play outside. Instead, they're on their devices, right? And I remember being yelled at all the time, get outside. And there was stuff to do. We'd find stuff to do. So going back to the land, that's knowing who we are, because it's in us. That's our inherent right to know who we are. So I won't talk anymore. I won't take up much more of your time. I wish you all well. And this is such a beautiful conference to walk into today. Shimmiwich.
Thank you very much. Next, I will call up on MLTC Board of Education Chair, Chief Norma Cataract.
Marcy Chosalot ini, sinye sanuhel hidahe dunzenike. Saya tia yasi yawas tiukulu tot ina aslia turnu danasarit aha. Sinye jasanu daily, nuch ala nedana chow, nus kanana kada nuch new, nus kanahadon ten. Marcy nu hanastansi. Nan nach ala net asekhui, but ala nene zuhu esti hadan tenu, asiga danellahu eskedaset liudani ye. Nusta kenetla tudanit inebekwenkohunt ilehuli school ayer teachers in akadanesni ahadayunel tena benina ratsers and sekui. Marcy Cho. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I mean, this is like overwhelming, seeing this many teachers in one room. As a previous speaker said, we are all educators, but you guys are the masters. We educate what we can about our culture, our tradition, our knowledge to people we meet out there. I had a meeting with the ministers yesterday. I had 12 of them in the room. And I told them about our land base where we honor the land. They need to understand that. We need to educate them. Any opportunity I get where there's politicians and leaders in there, I let them know. As Aboriginal people, we value the land. The land base is ours. We want to preserve it. We want to have it there for future generations, for our kids and for our grandkids. Land-based teaching is very important. And we need to teach other people we meet out there about what we do and how we do it. Because they need to understand, they need to respect our land for Mother Earth to survive and to sustain our children for generations to come. I'd like to thank the organizers. Can you guys all stand up? This is an awesome job. I just give them a hand for everything they've done. Come on. Thank you so much, and what a coincidence they're all ladies. Thank you so much, and please enjoy the next 3 days. Put your heart, your mind, your body, and your spirit into the things that you'll learn in the next 3 days. Network, get a support system going, and as teachers and as human beings, we have needs where we need to take care of ourselves. If you can find that in someone in here, take their information, someone to call, someone to lean on, because we all need those. Marcy Chosalot Ine.
And last but never least, Director of Education, Patricia St. Dennis. I know she's been really exciting. She's just been vibrating. I can feel her energy.
All right, I just want to do something, and I think I can do it because, I can. It's lunchtime right now, and we're still not over our programming yet. So what I'd like to do is just to put a little bit of a pause on the programming, and I would like our prayer for lunch to happen, get lunch, come back to our tables, and then you can hear me speak while you're chewing on your sandwiches and eating and slurping on your soup. Does that sound okay? All right.
So at this time, the elders are going to bless the food and say, once the elders done praying, we'll have a setup for standing in line. We'll start, once he's done, we'll start with our elders and our dignitaries, but we will wait until he has completed his prayer. Please remove your hats. Hi. So with that, can I get all the elders and the dignitaries? And when I usually host my youth conference, I usually ask my farthest schools to start because they've traveled the farthest. So I don't know if we want to do that with Buffalo River, Birch Narrows, and Clearwater after the elders and dignitaries. It's just a nice way. But Buffalo River, sorry, English River as well. So we'll have the elders line up, the dignitaries, and then the schools from Clearwater River Dene Nation, Buffalo River Dene Nation, Birch Narrows Dene Nation, English River Dene Nation, and then all us Crees, we can go last. A little bit of a housekeeping. If you still, the registration will be open. So if you haven't had an opportunity to register, you still can. There is a Wi-Fi password for those of you that would like to. It's welcome 202 pound. Welcome 202 pound if you need the Wi-Fi code. And we will just announce housekeeping. The washrooms are in the back for this level. Over there, the far, that way I'm pointing with my lips, if you can see that, in that corner. And then on the main floor, after our keynote, there'll be some washrooms downstairs. But we'll cover all of that. And everybody else, just please line up. Thank you. I've asked to do a call out, a happy birthday to Lydia from Waterhen. Happy birthday, Lydia. I need to do a shout out for my former boss, and you guys probably all know him. He's moved on to SIIT. I don't know if he's here. Arlis Culinaire. He's the Dean of Adult Education. I know Shira was dancing. I don't know if he's left. He might have left. What a wonderful morning. What a way. I spoke to an elder from Stanley Mission yesterday, and him as well. He spoke about the eagles returning. So those are powerful symbols to know of renewal at this time.
All right, you guys. We are day one here at the Full Circle Conference here at TCU Place. I want to thank you guys for tuning in live, and we do apologize for the audio this morning. Everything is fixed now and ready to go. Yeah, so there's the day one schedule here going on here at the Full Circle Conference. Tomorrow is really where it all kind of gets going, and there's a lot happening. So right now we have Energy Healing by Nicole Standinghorn. You just sign up. She'll be here for all 3 days. And then obviously register in the main lobby. And then this afternoon, we have Mika Lafond, Dene Chicham Urich, and Paul Haynes. And then Kevin Pias. And then we have a fireside chat with Noel Crow Salazar. So tune in for that, you guys.
We're going to get through some housekeeping on the agenda before we get started with our first keynote. But before I start going on the housekeeping, I was just sharing that there was a wonderful song that was written by, well, a conciliation song by Dwayne Lastasse. He's originally from Waterhen, and I was just sharing that it was just a profound song I'd shown to all my staff, and I go, this is the song I want to learn how to sing. So I challenge all of you, maybe somebody will learn how to sing by the time we get back here. I just want to really play it to you. It's a really beautiful song. Very, very powerful song. And, I could also seeing our students sing that. So I'm just going to very quickly, while you're still chewing, go over some housekeeping. Again, the password for the Wi-Fi is welcome with a capital W, 202 pound key. So that's the Wi-Fi code. Welcome with a capital space, 202 pound. All right. We're going to start with our keynote, Noella Pro Salazar, at 1 o'clock. Salazar, there we go. I already mentioned where the washrooms are. So the male is the farther corner and the female is right here at the middle. And there are all washrooms on the main level for your individual sessions after the keynote this afternoon. And those are located in the hallway. How many of you ever attended a concert here at TCU Place when it used to be concerts? Yeah. I had one of my really good friends take me to a concert, and she said it was George Thorogood. And I'm like, I don't know if I know any of his songs. But then when I showed up to the concert, it was just an amazing song. I knew all his songs. So that was the last time that I was here as a concert. Smoking is only located exiting the doors at the bottom of the stairwell. All right. So if you're going to smoke, you have to exit the building at the bottom of the stairwell, but the doors will lock behind you, so you have to re-enter through the front. Again, the registration booth is open. I think the team has had lunch already, but you still need to register, and you haven't done so already. Registration is open. It'll be open till 2 o'clock today. So if you know somebody that's coming, just please give them the heads up. Photo release. Please note that photos and videos live stream are on site. If there is anyone who does not wish to be in photos, please let Liz Reed know. Liz Reed is over here with Kim Reed, and please don't listen to Kim Reed's sad story about me as a mean teacher. She's going around telling everybody who'll listen, Geraldine kicked me out of class. There's two sides to that story. Please and Liz will inform the photographer if you don't want your pictures being taken for the live stream. Please do your best to avoid that area back there, where the IOPS would be situated next, sent to Pete Roger. Many of you would have gotten emails or texts from your administrators regarding all the social media venues that they're using to promote this. There's a YouTube site. There's a live stream on YouTube. So if many of your EAs back home want to participate, we left ours at home. We're kind of sad, but we did take them to Edmonton for a retreat and a hockey game, so they're not too sad. The live stream is going to take place real time on Facebook. So if you're going to do that, it's youtube.com/@IOPPS. It'd be nice if I could actually access the screens and type it in as I speak, but there's also a Facebook page if you want to share that, and it's facebook.com/IOPPS.ca /. Attached on the post of the comments section are the various platforms of the social media poster and the agendas for each day of the program. Please like this page, share, subscribe, and write positive comments. Give it the awareness that this has. And from my understanding, Patty, you can correct me if I'm wrong, our conference this year is just for our 9-member bands. In the past, we used to have schools and communities come from various schools attend. So I know some of us, when I was speaking on this, they were like, "Oh, we wish we could come." Well, this is the first time we've met together since pre-COVID. So it's really important that we start in a good way this way with just our member schools. Again, if you're an Instagram follower, there's also a live stream on Instagram, and it's instagram.com/Petegwe, PETEGWE. That social media poster with various platforms and agendas for each day. So please like and follow and share. And if you are on a TikTok fan, and lately I've been learning everything I need to know about how to do everything on TikTok. Unfortunately, it takes up a lot of my time. But if you're on that, if you're going to follow, it's at Peter OJJAIEAYE. Again, it's at Peter OJAIYE. Look to the far right over there. You'll see a photo booth. Please feel free. You'll see I think he's sitting beside the security guard. I think it's there, eh? Say if you want to. Thank you for teaching me. It's Facebook. You go to Facebook and search Full Circle Conference. And for YouTube, just type in IOPS. Okay? So Facebook, you can search Full Circle Conference. And on YouTube, just search IOPS. Thank you. Again, photo booth is. Haven't been told otherwise. Let me know if I do. Please feel free to take a selfie at the booth to be shared at the Full Circle Conference Facebook page. The selfie photos will be sent through Facebook Messenger to Full Circle Conference School Messenger and can be viewed on the Full Circle Conference Facebook page. Thank you to all the vendors that are set up in the back for the next couple days. There'll be an energy healing station with Nikki Standinghorn from 9 to 4 p.m. daily. It's located in the gallery suite on the main level. There's 15-minute time slots to sign up for energy healing outside the door for anybody who wants to experience this healing. Again, that's located on the gallery, suite 1 on the main floor, and that'll be, I believe, from 9 a.m. to 4. Now, when you decide to pick your sessions, it's a first come, first serve for the sessions. If you see the session is full, don't try sit on your cousin's lap. No, go to another session, okay? Don't sit on their lap. It gets to be a little bit of a crowded area and we want to keep ventilation open. Please choose another session from somebody else. There's going to be a Kevin Pias, am I saying it right? Yes, painting session. If you want to take it, that's a 2-hour session. That's the painting one. It's 2 till 4 p.m. today. Maximum is 50 participants. So you need to sign up outside the gallery room C on the main level. Now, this is something really important. Feedback. It's really important that we get your feedback in terms of the sessions, the keynotes, everything that you're experiencing the next few days. So you will notice outside every there'll be a QR scanning code. So you just take it with your phone, with your camera, you take a picture of it, and then it allows you to fill in. There's usually 4 questions. You rate from a rubric from 1 to 4. Scan the code for the session you're in. So just don't do it. You need to do it for everyone that you enter. Fill in with the first and last name and school, and complete the form. This is how you are entered in for door prizes. Yes, prizes. We all love prizes, right? There are door prizes for each session, which will be announced at the end of every day. The keynote and the fireside chat session accompanied with keynote will have one feedback form. Keynote door prizes will be given out Friday at the end of the conference. These are major door prizes. And this is what we do with our high school students. We make them stay to the end. The good ones are at the end. You have to be in the room to get the prize, or we keep selecting. So make sure that you stay and enjoy the wonderful conference that has been planned very well for you and your school. With that, it's 12:49. And can I just get everybody's attention? We're just going to have some words from our Director of Education. Are you ready now, Patty? Or do you want to give him a few minutes? Okay, so if I can get everybody's attention back. Should I sing? I don't know a song. Jess, what should we sing? I used to sing to my sons when they're giving them a bath when they're little, and they were crying. They said, Mom, stop. So I guess I don't sing. All right, here we go. Director of Meadow Lake Tribal Council Education, Patricia St. Dennis.
Kanse Patricia St. Dennis Sigasun Kamanis Pigumanagos Kak Utin Nina Egoe no Nigawi Egote Uti. That's my name is Patricia St. Dennis. I'm from Cumberland House Cree Nation, where my mom is from. Was thinking about, it's been 10 years that I have worked in MLTC. First 3 years at Makwa Sagaigan First Nation School, beautiful place to work at, and then 7 years being an assistant superintendent, and now the senior director of education. And our vice chief, Richard DeRocher, talked about how he was, I'm just reading between the lines, so I'll just make up a really good story, how he was just a little bit nervous addressing everybody here because he's looking at us as like other level of expertise, other level of education. And then I was thinking about the really hard job that you have in leadership, and how when I am around Vice Chief Richard DeRocher, Vice Chief Labada, Tribal Chief Richard Ben, I get nervous. You know why I get nervous? Because I think about all of the other lived experiences that you have acquired for you to be in this position that you are today. It's such a great, it's a great honor for, I think that you think it's a great honor for you to be in the leadership positions that you are, because the Creator would not put you there if you weren't supposed to be there. And I also feel that your leadership, you respect it and you don't go and use it and misuse it, because if you do that, I feel it would be taken away from you. And then I was thinking about also is that when we're educators, we're technical. We think about outcomes, we think about indicators, we think about curriculum. And now we're at this point where we're saying we have to learn from the land where your stories come from. I feel like the tables have turned. Yes, there's people in here that are experts in education, but I feel we have only gone so far, and we're looking for your help. We're looking for the help that is in our custodial, in our maintenance men and women, in our elders, because I feel that those are the only ones that are going to may help us move forward, is your knowledge. We've always heard that those people have PhDs in their knowledge of the land and language. So when I'm thinking about that healing, that mind, that body, that heart, and that spirit, I need your help, tribal chiefs. I need your help, elders. Which then I forgot to say, I thank you so much for Elder William Ratcliffe and the men and the women that he brings together for ceremony. Because without it, we're losing that huge portion of what makes us whole, that spirituality that we need in our lives. And I'm going to say something that today's pipe ceremony, I have never seen the amount of people that were at that pipe ceremony this morning that I've seen in any other pipe ceremony that I've attended, and I haven't attended all of them. But it was almost like double to triple the amount of people that were there. So to me, that's a turning point of us seeing of what we value and what we want to get to be able to learn from and learn with. And man, those powers were really powerful. To hear those prayers at the same time, simultaneously, Cree and Dene, and then to hear the drummers, thank you very much, drummers, for opening our opening ceremonies up. To hear the Cree and then to hear the Dene, oh, my heart. I was healing my mind, my heart, my body, and my spirit. And this conference we haven't had one in person since 2019. In March 16, 2020, when the world shut down, our conference was supposed to happen the week after that. Last year, we had one that was online, and then this year, it's only the 9 Meadow Lake First Nations, and there's almost 400 of us here. I was told, yes, it is because we're excited to come together. We're excited to come together and to be with one another. And to get to know new people, and then to ignite those relationships that we already have established with people that maybe we don't have a chance to always see all the time. And that is so important. The organizers, like we have like committees, we have, just people that just really lead these things. Thank you very much. And for everybody else that helped, thank you very much. It's so important that you can see all the hard work. We try not to forget anything. And it's just so beautiful. It's just so wonderful to see what we have planned for you. And what we have planned for you is not, so to speak, on something that you can use as a learning strategy, that you can connect to curriculum, that you can talk, that you can teach inside your classroom. That's not it. What it is to connect your heart, your mind, your body, and your spirit, and allow and open up for healing. Because if you don't, and you're not an example of it, our kids can't learn. And I know somebody said that in our leadership opening addresses. And it's so important. And you've heard this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll probably say it 1,000,000 times more. One of my goals in my leadership is to make sure that I normalize love. I love every one of you. And I also want to focus on making sure that what I say, I also do to myself. So with that, I just want to thank every single person for doing all this, all of the preparation. I lift up every session. I lift up every keynote because, and I'm solely believing this, what Vice Chief Richard DeRocher said, this day has already been written. and tomorrow and the next day. Don't fight anything. Just let it be the way that it's supposed to be for the next 3 days. Go back refreshed, rejuvenated, and ready for the next few months towards the end of the school year. And it's going to come really fast because March has come super fast. Like, hola. 47 years old, and I think that time is ticking like really super fast for me. With that, I love you. I lift everybody up. I pray for many blessings upon every one of you. And again,
Thank you very much, Prisha. I was listening to some of the keynotes this morning about our children, and we almost have permission now to demonstrate that love. It's so important. And I was raised by my kukam and just direct from residential school at Beardy's and Okamaston. So when we would go in to hug her, she was told it was like evil. And so now to watch, and she's gone to the spirit world, watching her with her chapans, and we all of us just looked when he was born, my first chapan, Cody, and all our mouths just fell open because she was hugging him and kissing him, and she's like, don't talk to him like that, don't do that. And when we were growing up, she goes, don't do that, spank. But and we've all worked at forgiveness because we didn't know better, and what I've learned in my own healing journey is that we tend to repeat what we don't repair. So in my own healing journey, and then I'm just very mindful of the love. With that, can I ask everybody that's at the vendors and everybody to take a seat? I'm just going to introduce now our keynote speaker. Again, you don't want me to think. All right. Give everybody a couple seconds to sit down. All right. I have the wonderful pleasure to introduce our first keynote of the day, Noella Crow Salazar. Noella is a mother and a kukam. She is a Cree and a member of Cowessess First Nation in Saskatchewan. Noella is currently working on a PhD in education and holds a Master of Social Work degree. She's a registered social worker with over 25 years experience working with First Nations children and families in child welfare and mental health settings. Her clinical background has a special focus on trauma and problematic substance use with special populations. Noella has worked extensively in direct practice policy, program design, and management roles. The foundation of her work and practice are grounded in her culture and values as an Indigenous woman, and a belief that everyone has inherent strengths and wisdom. Noella is passionate about collaborating work and sharing information that is meaningful and practical in helping Indigenous peoples heal from trauma. She has been a sessional lecturer at the University of Regina and Dalhousie, a national trainer on trauma and mental wellness, and is currently the CEO of Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge on Cowessess First Nation. With that, let's welcome Noella Crow Salazar.
Thank you, everyone. I am deeply honored to be here with you today, and would like to acknowledge the territory we're on, Treaty 6. So acknowledge the people, the Cree, the Dakota, Nakota, Saugatuck, and homeland of the Métis, and to also acknowledge all of you from Treaty 10 territory and Cree and Dene from your territories. It's a deep honor to be here. I thought I would start with asking everybody who is not a teacher, can you please stand up? If you're not a teacher. So our teachers are so sacred, and so what I wanted to do while you're standing is that we're giving those a seat of honor, that often we have our elders and people who are older be honored, and to honor all the teachers in the room, that we'll do a round of applause for the teachers, from all the non-teachers. So, thank you. My life started with being raised by a family of educators who are non-Indigenous. Part of my presentation tells a bit of my story. The broader background is I am, as we said, a member of Cowessess First Nation in Chief Territory, and I was adopted in the 60s Scoop. My mother in my adopted family was a teacher, and there were many educators in that family. And when I graduated from high school, I was actually accepted to the University of Brandon into education. And for whatever reason, that didn't happen. I didn't go. I went traveling instead. I went and lived in California for a bit. Teaching remains a theme throughout my life, though. And so I started a PhD during COVID, which worked out really nicely because I got to see people online every week. And I was very happy to enter a PhD program in education. So it is with a deep sense of honor to be able to be with you today and to be able to spend this time. What I'll be talking about, as outlined up on the screens you can see, is trauma and Indigenous considerations for healing and wellness. So I'm looking for, this was a clicker. There it is. I was also going to say, I love going to events and seeing everyone in their ribbon skirts. And this skirt, my auntie mom, my kids call her Granny, made it for me in the summer. And she's asking me all these questions that the seamstress would ask, of course. And she's like, do you want to sit in it? I'm thinking, I don't want to sit in it. So as I'm walking across from the hotel, I asked for straight, no slit. So those of you who sew can imagine what my challenge is. Or not challenge. I walk very slowly. There was traffic waiting for me, and my gait is very short in this skirt. So I was thinking, though, as I was very slowly crossing the street, it was making me mindful this morning of slowing down. And I think that's one of the biggest things when we think about working with people, and especially with trauma. At the break, Lisa was telling me a story about a teacher that she had sat and spent some time with, who had lost a family member the week before, but the next week was still in the classroom. There are countless nations that I've worked with across the country where I hear that same story, where things happen to us, but we don't stop to pause and take the time that we need for ourselves. So it really taught me this morning to, as I was really mindful, like trying to hurry in the cold and that I could, if I could remove this mic and walk for you, you can see my gait has to be really short, that we need to slow down. So maybe that's the lesson that my auntie mom was teaching me, is that I need to slow down. And I think that's a good message for all of us, is as you have these days here, that you've got this nice opportunity to connect with each other. And it's really important to take that time to just slow down. And as you're doing that, reflecting on one of the earlier listeners, I think it was Geraldine, talked about that our students feel what we're feeling. And that makes a lot of sense, that you have such a privilege and honor to be with so many young people every day. And it's a hard job. I go to school sometimes during COVID. I only did counseling, and I loved going just onto First Nations and 24, and being able to work with students and families and people. Most often is in health centers, but after things opened up a bit more the past year or so, I've been with students in classrooms, and they're always fascinating. Just the dynamic and the teachers and just the whole flow. The one school I go into, they have cats, So it started off that one student didn't they had a cat that they couldn't keep at home. So their teacher was being nice and said, yeah, okay, you can keep the cat at school. It turned out, naturally, everybody loved the cat. And ended up being really opening in this whole school for different ages and different grades. So now that school has 3 cats, which is really interesting. If I go in and I'm doing work with, they're talking about different students, about different areas of wellness, all of a sudden they'll be, if I'm waiting or if I'm going in, there was a math class one day, and all of a sudden this cat is just hopping from desk to desk. Everyone's still working, but it's kind of calming. And I think the animals as well pick out the students of who needs that settling. And so you'd see this cat hopping and students stopping and taking that moment to pet the cat and then regrounding. So it's really nice to see. Which one of the things I was going to talk about is the many paths to wellness. So I'm sure you're all aware of that as we're all coming through, not to focus on the bad negative, we all know residential school has impacted us, the 60 scoop has impacted us, the millennial scoop, and those things that we're all working through and beyond. So there's lots of talk of trauma, and sort of inundated with it in many places, many settings. Beyond that, though, are there many paths to wellness, and that's what I want to focus on in this time with you, is to really start thinking about what are those many paths to wellness. So in that, I'll stop it there. Just to stop and think about some basic questions, because we can't get to many paths to wellness without sort of having a stop and reflecting. So in our lives, what is trauma in our day-to-day lives? So if you can just stop and think about what are some traumas in our day-to-day lives? And when we stop and reflect, sometimes we can overlook what those traumas actually have been. This week alone, in the new role that I'm in, I have a team of about 60 people. And in that team of 60 people, every week, there's a number of things that come up that are trauma related, where they've lost a family member, or somebody's in the hospital, or had a couple people resign because of health and other matters. Those are varying degrees of trauma. As well, underneath it, in the area of work that I do right now, within, I'll talk a bit about the end of that, which is more child welfare based, and mental health based. We all come to this having experience behind us of residential school or of 60 scoop or millennial scoop. And what do we do with that? Since December, since the role change I've had, daily I sort of ask myself, at the end of this team of 60 people, we're all trying to work with our children, and they are all in care right now. And we're trying to bring them home, not physically bring them all home, but in theory, be working with them and connected to them. How is that trauma affecting each of us in our day-to-day life, of the connections that we are having with those children, and how do we process that? And how does it trigger us or remind us of what our past is? And are we able to, I always think trauma can be a bit like ebbing and flowing. Lisa was talking about the normalization of counseling. We really do need to normalize that. I'll tell people quite openly, and have for years, I've gone to counseling since I was a teenager, being raised by a non-Indigenous family, and the things that I went through as a teenager. I'm very fortunate that I had family who kept me safe and they were loving. That was good, because of course every story looks a little different. But those are things that I'm mindful on our nation and people trying to bring children home. We have a few staff who have moved home just to do this. And I've said to them, 15 years ago, I could not have gone to live on Cowessess First Nation and be in this role. My mother was a member of Cowessess, and the trauma of that and the pain, that deep heart pain of the loss of her life and her death, had been too much for me to handle. But through counseling and other work, and it's very overworked over the years, and I'll do different types of counseling at different times. So sometimes I just need somebody to talk to. I have an older woman, she's retired now, but she still does private practice. She's a ed psychologist. And I can just go, she's more like a mother. But she'll give me good solid advice and good counseling advice. And she's in her 70s. So she's one. I have another lady I go see who does somatic counseling, which is really just inner reflecting on your body. There's not a lot of talk. And sometimes that's very helpful. And I think that's really important. Then there's sometimes I'm looking for an intuitive coach that I talk to sometimes if I'm having just sort of a hard time with an issue where I need to think it out more. And that will help. So we all have very steady paths to wellness and ways we can handle these traumas that we sit with and that we have to be faced with. Keep shutting it off instead of sliding to the next one. So this is those are some of the ways that we can collectively consider how we counter trauma. First of all, it has to start with ourselves, because those children will feel us, and the parents will feel us, and the families will feel us, our own families feel us. So it's really important that we collectively stop to consider that. From that collective way of doing that, we can then safely reflect on our own trauma stories. So often I'll hear people that I've worked with, and I'm going to tell you 3 stories. And one is about somebody that I've walked with. She often has people come and ask her to talk about her story. And she's had now about 2 years of stability. And I tell her, your story is sacred. You know, like your story is like in here, sacred, like a sacred bundle. And you don't ever have to tell your story if you don't want to. And that's okay. You know, some of us do, and some of us tell portions. So I'll tell you portions of my story. But of course, it's never the full thing. So, you know, we've been here a long time. But it's the key of it, though, is being able to do it safely. And what I've said to this young woman and other young people I've worked with, and even older people, it's important that if you're going to tell your story or portions of it, that you're able to do it safely. So you're not so deeply getting pulled to the past. Because what happens, like right now with everybody, can you think of what your favorite song is and a moment with that song? So for me, it's not a favorite song, but the song Jefferson Airplane or the Jefferson Starship had that song in the 80s, We Built This City. So when I was 17 years old, I was in a car with a group of girls, and we started doing hand movements for this song. So every time that song comes on, I immediately am overwhelmed with this sort of like joy and laughter of like what it was like doing that. That's profound. Like those moments, if you have that song or that memory that does that to you, trauma does the same thing to us. That if something triggers us to a past memory, and it could be anything. I was doing a training with a First Nations group home, and they had everybody in, so they had their maintenance guy in. And we were talking there was a case study, and it was really like the topic itself was not a deep topic. But in the little case study, a grandma had passed away. And it just said the grandma had passed away. He was so deeply triggered, we had to stop for the afternoon. And what had happened with him is he was raised by his grandma, and his grandma had died 4 years earlier, and he had never stopped to pause on her death. So not only did he have a little bit of grief, that grief had gotten so big, it was very overwhelming. And I spent some time with him. The director spent some time with him. We had to stop everything to be able to do that. Now, that's an extreme case of getting pulled to the past, but sometimes that happens. I'm often working with people in counseling roles where often the very first question, this is not a typical thing you would ask in a counseling assessment and not a typical thing that you would ask a student, but it helps. And so I'll give you one thing right now that really I found helpful in working with young people. So I will often ask them, do you have recurring images of pictures that come to your mind of something bad that has happened to you? It could be just a flash, it could be a face, it could be a smell, it could be a taste. Do you have that? And majority of the time, I've not once sat down with a young person or even an older person where they don't say yes, they have that. So that is a trauma trigger. And sometimes when I'm asking them, I'll say, what is the frequency? So I'm shocked by sometimes some of them will say it. They're in school and they'll say hundreds of times a day. So when you're having that type of a pause, it's disassociating. If you disassociate, you cannot learn. So for one, I'll tell parts of her story, and she is fully aware that I'm telling parts of her story from my perspective of the privilege and honor that I've had, so that she allowed me to walk with her. So I'll get more into her story, but one of the things that she had said to me was the trigger would happen and it just complete zone out. She'd be in the middle of learning something, so they had to watch the news or something. She was doing grade 11 classes, and it was during COVID. So needles are a trigger for her. So of course, with vaccinations and COVID, in the news, every story had needles. She would then be triggered. She couldn't listen to the rest of what the news story was, and they would all have to be writing on a caption of what was shown in this news story. She couldn't do it. So I found a way then of, well, you know what the trigger is. We know how to, she had some things to help calm her. And this is one of them that we would do. And this is what I said, I'll give you something to help. So this was when she would come to that one, we'd get her to do 4 square breathing, which a lot of people do. So that's that breathing of 4 breaths in, you hold for 4, you release for 4 seconds, pause for 4 seconds. So in for 4, pause for 4, exhale for 4, pause for 4, and around 4 times. So we would do that. We would also do the really good one is right now you can do it if you feel your butt in your back of the chair and feel your feet on the floor and have at least 3 points of contact with sensation and really feel it. And even if you get your classrooms to do this, because it grounds them in their bodies. So there's feeling. To see, I usually do 3 colors or 3 objects, and hear 3 things. So you're engaging 3 senses. I often you can engage smell as well, but sometimes that one depends where you are. Some things can be overwhelming for smell. But those 3 will help ground a person back to feeling safe here, back to being focused. So that's a really good thing to do. The image is one. If you are with the students, it is like I've found, because I'll do it just in a normal conversation, ask them that. It's usually something that we do later on. But I find that trauma is so pervasive all over with everybody, not just with First Nations people. So I will say to people, so you're in a room now, you look where the wall meets the ceiling, and you put that image up on the wall, the size of a TV screen, however big they want, make it half the size, a quarter of the size, an eighth of the size, all the way down and down and down until poof, it's gone. And you do that every time that image comes in. So any room you're in, or if you're outside, find a power line, a cloud, something, you have to be looking up. And the next time you're feeling bad, if you notice the difference that and if you're like this, as to opposed curled in, things feel better if it's something in our body flow. That's a better feeling. So getting students to do that, what I noticed would happen with a lot of them is they'd come back, and usually for ones that were doing a lot of trauma, would see them a few times a week, they would come back and say they were doing that every time. But over time, so that means they were having that vision 200 times a day or seeing that. They're doing it 200 times a day, but it's pretty quick to do that and then it's gone. They're literally retraining their brain and their body to not have that image. Because trauma is in our central nervous system. So that's also another way for safely helping people be able to help you in the classroom safely deal with communication and kids who have trauma, and maybe in your own family. but it also helps us get to that point of safety, of always being grounded in now. I love all the land-based education. The other thing that I found in my counseling practice over COVID is I'm rarely, if ever, inside of an office. If I can find ways to go for a walk or go in the hills or walk to the store, everybody wants to do that. Or to be in if there's a traditional room where there's, sweetgrass and sage, people will choose that way over that if there's a, sort of a Western counseling space. Most often for kids, they will choose, even if it's cold in winter, they'll choose to be outside. So I've been outside at the health centers in the valleys, when a few nations walking in the hills, and people will be like, you guys are gonna get eaten by a coyote or a bear or something like that. They'll leave us alone. They're probably more afraid of us. But those are some ways of safely. So grounding in wellness is very important, and learning how to ground in wellness. So even now, I'll get really stressed, and I had somebody on this team yesterday tell me, 4 square breathing, 4 square breathing. So no matter where we're at in our own healing journeys and our own wellness, we will still need to remember those basic things of just breathing. And that's okay. Trauma and healing from it really is, like, if we're learning from nature, a river can flow at a normal rate, a river can go really high and overflow, and it can go really low. And that's the same with trauma. I know for myself, I have to watch myself if I'm smoking or if I want a Diet Coke. Those are indicators to me if I wanted to say Diet Coke, not Ryan Coke. Sometimes I've said that to people. They're like, "Did you say Ryan Coke?" No, Diet Coke. But we all have those warning signs where our body will tell us what we can handle and what is okay. So those are some of the keys about walking with others and walking on their wellness journey. Our first step is walking with ourselves. When I first started practicing as a social worker in the 90s, I had a community, she's an elder now, but at that time she was a community helper, say to me, I don't ever want to hear you talking about the people you work with as your clients. And which of course, yeah, it's a bigger thing now. People talk about it a lot more. And she said, you always be honored that somebody has allowed you to walk with them during this part of their journey. And that's a big thing of recognizing that. And also to recognize as teachers, if you have a student who discloses to you about their personal life, you're on that same journey with them. And it's a deep honor that they're trusting you to share that. And I'll just say, no matter what they share with you and how hard it is, it's really important, and you have in your hearts the ability to listen to them. Even though as a clinical social worker, I've done training, the biggest training is just that care and love and some of the traditional law and teachings that we have in our communities. Those are the basics of good counseling practice. So if you have students sharing with you things that have happened to them, just hear them. I have sometimes people that come to me where they did disclose to somebody else, and that person got afraid and wanted to refer them to somebody else. So I'll talk a bit about that too, and I better get moving on the 3 stories. So I'll start with story 1 is a piece that I disclose about myself, and a story that I've told a lot. And it was my son's first day of school. So my son he'll be 21 in a couple weeks. So I came to tell this story teaching social workers because of course we go to teach, and talking about residential school for me, it seemed very insincere talking about it without talking about it in the context of my family, and talking about it without the context of my own children. So that was how I came to tell it. The significance of the story is he was, I think, maybe in grade 1 at that time I started telling that story. He's now, quite a bit older. I told it to social work students who were non-Indigenous because I wanted them to recognize that he wasn't that much, over the years that I've told that to them, he wasn't that much different in age from them. Because for most non-Indigenous people, they think of residential school and they think it's a long time ago. And what I've learned even now, working more, like especially on COVID and being in schools and in communities and Treaty 4 and First Nations communities, a lot of our own kids think the same thing, that was a long time ago. Or the other thing that happens is we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it with our children. And that's okay, because we don't want to re-traumatize them. But it's important so those are the reasons I came to tell the story, because I'm okay. It was something I've worked through and okay to share. And it's a fairly easy story to tell, but I had the ability to safely tell it. The arena. So Brené Brown says, you don't go out in the arena and tell your story unless you don't have you're not expecting to get anything back. And the only reason you're telling it is to help share a message and help share learning and understanding and development. So that was how that story started, was with teaching non-Indigenous social workers. I'll do it now because it's become this bigger part of my life. And I think it's really important when we're thinking about trauma that we're able to have parts of ourselves that we can disclose and talk about. And that's important. So this is a story, this is a video, so I'll play the video. Hopefully it'll play. I don't know if I hit the...
So when you were a baby, we were at Fort Qu'Appelle at Treaty 4. It would be September. And you were sitting down at my feet, and Musham was sitting where you are, and I'm sitting here. And you were sitting beside Skylar, and you were both playing. And Dad started looking around, and he said this was exactly the kind of day and exactly what it looked like the day I was taken to residential school. He then went on and told the story about he could hear the wagon wheels on the ground over the gravel. When he got there, what happened? He talked about having deep loneliness and missing his parents, not being able to speak Cree, and he only knew Cree. He didn't see his parents again until December. And then he looked up and he asked me, how old is he now? And he met your brother. So I said, he's 4. And he said to me, that's how old I was the day they took me. I was watching you and Skylar, and I was thinking, what if somebody took him today? And the loss that I felt over knowing Skylar at 4 and all the things he needed from me every day, and even the two of you, how you were. I then tell students about the day your brother started school. Walked him in and watched him from the side of the playground as he lined up, and watched him right until he walked into the school. And I felt really emotional about it, and I really wasn't sure why. And as I was walking home, I was thinking, I didn't get to come home my first day of school. I was thinking about my first day of school, and I felt kind of sad and kind of strange because I was adopted in the 60s scoop. So I got home and I phoned Musham and I asked him, so you went to residential school. My grandfather, Musham went to residential school. Did your grandfather, my great-grandfather, go? Because I wasn't sure about that. And he said, yes, he also went. So I said, today at the end of school, I'll go and I'll walk and I'll get Skylar and I'll walk home with him. And I'll put him, I'll feed him a snack, feed him supper, play with him, bath him, put him to bed, and we'll do the same thing tomorrow. And he is the first kid in our line for 5 generations who got to come home his first day of school.
So, it's that day of that school. When I think about walking him, I was actually crying on my way home from school, and I didn't know why. And it was just these tears of I thought, people are thinking, no, I talked to my adopted mom and she's like, oh, you're just, over-attached mom. And I'm thinking, no, it's something else, it's deeper. And after I talked to Dad, and Dad cried when I said that to him, because it was a really big thing for us to think about, that he's the first kid for 5 generations who got to come home his first day of school. So huge. And that puts us into, thinking about this context. And it's going to take some work and going to take some time for all of our collective healing and wellness. but there's lots of ways to get there, and there's lots of us who are doing this, and it is so important. And it is so important that we're all making these steps and these moves and working towards our collective healing and wellness. So that's the one story. As I've built on this story, this is my family. So on the very, very top, I guess your right-hand corner, the man with the buffalo horns on is my great-grandfather, Migwan. That photo was taken in 1914 in File Hills. It was taken, there's several photos that day. It was the beginning of World War I. So there, he's in his traditional wear. He was a medicine man. At the top, in the middle are my paternal grandparents, Noel Crow and Seraphine Crow from Pye Pot First Nation and Muscopeding First Nation. That is probably, these are the 1950s. The next one are my maternal grandparents, Alphonse Lavalle and Annie Lavalle from Cowessess First Nation and Maryvale. The very bottom corner is to the right are my adopted parents, Ray and Orvina Black, and that's who raised me. My mom actually was a teacher, and she died right before COVID. She was 98 years old and had survived breast cancer at 97. Beside them are my parents, Noel Crow and Myrtle Delorme. My mother died about a year after I was put in care. I've been talking about my mom more than my birth mother, more than I've ever talked about her, because that's probably been my biggest wound, or it has been. But with this going back to Cowessess and doing the work I'm doing now, I'm finding for the first time in my life more comfortable speaking about her. And it's nice. It's nice to get to that point of feeling more connected to her. And that's just by being on the land out at Cowessess. And our building is very close to, I drive by where she was raised. The school is there. You know, it's that land connection really helps me feel connected to her. These are my children, Skylar and Alexa. So Sky is in the white sweatshirt there. These are a while ago. He's 21 now. I think he was 17 there, or 18, I think. The other corner is my daughter, Jasmine. She is 39. So I had her when I was 15, which is another story to be told. And her husband, Zach, and my grandson, Kylan, who's very fair. So I take him out and I say, people probably think I kidnapped him. His name is Kylan. I talk a lot about the space between Kylan and Migwan, and that for me, and trauma healing and recovery, and also life ethics and being grounded and having that ethical space that Willie Ermine will talk about, that I think about Kylan's great-grandchildren, and I think about my great-grandfather Migwan, and the space between the two of them and everything that has happened and is going to happen. And what an amazing story that is. A story of extreme resilience and extreme wellness, and that's for all of us. You all have this same story. As part of my PhD, I found an interview done with my great-grandfather Migwan in 1931. He would have been in his late 80s. And he talked about the territory they traveled was from Edmonton to the Mississippi River. That's a huge territory. So when we talk about the land and our territories, that was a big area to cover. He was talking in his interview about generations before him that would have gone to the 1700s, which is huge. Like, I felt so overwhelmed the day I found that interview to be able to read his words in his late 80s. And to also, when I see that photo of those men from 1914, they were alive as children to see when the buffalo disappeared in our territory of Treaty 4. They were alive when we were all moved on to First Nations in the 1880s. And the amount of loss that was. Yet in it, I think there's still resilience, and they had that. And that's one thing I will talk about in a little bit here. So to go into the three stories, story two. Story two, how do we hold another person's pain? So this is the story of the young woman I worked with, who I will call her Rain. And as I said, I have her permission to talk about my experience walking with her. it's really important, this piece. How do we hold another person's pain? And we all do it. We all, every day, to varying degrees, will hold other people's pain. And it is one of the, I think, most traditional qualities about each of us, and that ability that we all have to hold other people's pain, that I find about every First Nation that I've been to and worked with, that individual and communities across the country. We all do this. And sometimes that pain is really overwhelming and big, depending on what's happened collectively and the breakdown. But right now, with some of the revitalization, the language, bringing back of language and culture, we're getting way better at holding one another's pain. And that's really important, to be able to do that. So the significance of Rain's story is vulnerability. And I think it applies to any learning at any point in life. Without vulnerability, we do not learn. So again, it's sort of, you can tell I was watching Brené Brown documentaries last week. She does a lot of research around vulnerability. And in the research that she talks about, and other researchers, and I could have shown all the academia, but that gets to more like a lecture than just talking to people. Without being vulnerable, we can't learn. And if you think about that, every time you walk into yourselves, as you know, when you did your education degrees and were there, it takes a degree of vulnerability to sit in a classroom and say, and to be open to take something in. And in that same way, if I was thinking about students and people I work with, like, of course, everyone I work with comes voluntarily, so that's very easy. But when you have involuntary people, or if you have students who are, throwing books away, walking out, that's a wall up to learning, right? And that's, I think, one of the most challenging things, is how to engage that. But there's a point in that vulnerability where they perhaps have been vulnerable and it hasn't gone well. That vulnerability has caused pain. So it takes a while to be able to open that up again. So with Rain's story, I did it again out there. The story. So it's symboling the honor of walking with another and the honor of walking with her. She was 17 when I met her. And the first time I met her was at my house, and she had just injected crystal meth. And her mom brought her to see me because she wasn't sure at all what to do with her anymore, and had found out the day before that she had joined a gang in Regina. So I knew the family though, so felt safe with her. That was a big part. She looked very pale. She was very thin. She and her mom shared with me she had started injecting crystal meth about 6 months before I met her. Before that, she had, it'd been a gradual increase of drinking, marijuana, pills, till finally crystal meth. Her story, of course, is severe childhood trauma. So she shared with me her severe childhood trauma that started at age 7 and went to about age 11. And sitting with that and never telling anybody until she was 14. So there's a lot to sit with. And again, when you have youth in your classrooms or at any point, we've got to think about development and child development. So from 7 to 11, there's a ton we learn that she didn't learn because of what was happening to her daily. She had multiple overdoses. So in the first 6 months of working with her, her parents were at an end point with her because she had younger sisters and they didn't want them harmed from the gangs and from going to the hospital multiple times after she'd overdosed. So I would go. And I would go and I would stay. And the emergency room loved me because they didn't know what to do with her when she was, and she was safe. That was the other thing. She had no history of violence, really important. My own children, I would come home and have to explain to them where I was. And so I would just tell them. And one time I came out 3 a.m. and my daughter, I was smudging the house. And she said, "You need to shower to get rid of that." And oddly enough, a week later in a sweat lodge, an elder told me that I needed to shower more and that the water of the cleansing of that would help a lot with with some of the people I was seeing. So our own kids' intuition sometimes and wisdom is very profound. So that was the cycle. Moving to action, there were a few key things with Rain of moving her to action. And one was I faced a very hard thing with her and finally one day said to her, "You don't really want to live, do you?" Dead quiet. She was dead quiet. And she finally said, "No, I don't." So I said, what you're doing now and all the drug use, you're doing it to cover the pain of what happened to you. It's not about, the whole addict and all that. It's about pain. And you're doing it to cover that pain. But really, the pain has gotten so bad from your use that it's worse than what the original pain was. And she's just nodding and crying. And I said, so you have to decide. Do you want to live or do you want to die? And that is all we worked on for the next several months. Every time she came, we would do lists. Do you want to live or do you want to die? And they were hard. It was hard to sit with her. And I knew that at any time I could get a call and she'd be dead. Her mom and I had a conversation when her mom told me she couldn't go anymore to the emergency room, that over the next week, we both might get that call. And I knew I would have to be the one calling her. So her mom and I had that conversation about how that call would go and what we would do. And it was important to have that frankness. And I don't expect, any of you to do that because that's a big thing to do. But if you can, I'm sure you can, because it's just sitting with somebody's pain. Being able to sit with that pain though, and even though it sounds grim of do you want to live or do you want to die, it helped Rain move to action and to change. And it helped her shift into, no, I want to live. And when she got really serious about, no, I want to live, she changed many things in her life. And so, she started going through the stages of change of where she knew it was a problem and admitted it. She made some small changes in her life. And then we had a break of about, she met a guy. And we all know how that goes. You meet a guy. So she met a guy who, of course, was at the same place she was at. And so it was not a great match. But fortunately, the guy, beat her up, went to jail. And Rain got really serious again about I want to live. And Rain went to treatment. And daily, I was able to talk to her while she was in treatment. Not many therapists can do that. If you have one who's on the NAHP list, we usually can do that. So that's easier. And if you also have a connection with the person who's going to treatment, helps. So we talk daily on the phone. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made it through treatment because she was so triggered by the other people's stories. Gradually, she's made multiple changes. So we're now at, several years later, and she will be a social worker. She has traveled extensively and been honored for her academic studies, and she continues to be really amazing. She called me last month to verify her passport because she's going to Mexico to do some work as a social work student there. It took time to get there, but that piece, the key piece there was actually sitting and listening and hearing the hard story and being able to hold her pain. And hold it in a way where I was doing something about it too. Because if you're holding somebody's and they have that much pain, you have to also be able to do something about it. So for myself, I did my own self-care through that and made sure I went for me to ceremony, to counseling, to make sure that I was well enough to be able to hold that and to sit with her pain. So there's that vulnerability and healing. So she became vulnerable, but in that thing of being able to sit with her, I also had to be vulnerable. And so that's one thing about sitting with people, is that being able to also be vulnerable with them and be authentic about it is very important. And that's, I think, one of the key things that all of you do in your work day to day, of that you make these great connections with every kid you meet. And that is profound. That is huge, which is why I said I'm so honored to be with all of you. The other thing too that Rain, she said to me when we knew we were close to the end of counseling, and she'll still check in here and there, we had this vision of her trauma, and we didn't really, because it was hard to get to it, and we did a whole bunch of different things, but it was very, she also too had a diagnosis of PTSD, which is much different than just regular trauma. Anyhow, she said one day we had her trauma, we visualized it as back there, not here in the present, so it was back there, and it was in a closet, and the closet was very safely locked, really tight, tighter than anything, and there was a monster in there. And one day she said to me, you know that monster in the closet thing that we used to talk about? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you know, I was thinking about it the other day, and if I open up that closet, I'm pretty sure it's just me, which is huge. and she's right. The monster really was just her and her own healing and her own wellness, and that walk that she made, and the bravery she had to be vulnerable and to be able to come to that point of saying, it's just me. So, you know, she's thanked me, and her mother has thanked me for saving her life. And I said, no, I was able to hold her pain, but I didn't save her life. She saved her life. And I'm just so honored and grateful that she let me walk beside her, and that I learned more. I feel like I learned more from her than I ever learned in university. Learned more from her than many things in life. So that's one of the honors of this healing work. And as we all engage on walking with others on their healing work, that what we learn is more profound than anything. So these slides are on what is trauma, and a lot of you have probably seen these. So one of the definitions of trauma is it's a psychic wound that harms you psychologically. So it interferes with your ability to develop and grow. It pains you, and now you're acting out of pain. It induces fear, and now you're acting out of fear. Trauma isn't what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you. And that is so true. It's what happens inside of you as a result of what happened to you. So at the core of trauma-informed care, of course, we look at people and we think of not, oh, what's wrong with you, but, oh, what's happened to you. These other slides, I don't know if I'm going to have time to get into them, but decolonizing mental health and trauma is really important. I'd note these down since you're all teachers, because you can find these and read them. Mental health practice has changed quite a bit from the 1990s to now. When I worked in the 90s in a Western mental health practice, we all had depression and anxiety, and that was very pathologized and very these labels. I like that trauma doesn't give those labels, and it is more reflective. And there's also some really good research that's new and done by First Nations researchers around trauma. I'm not going to have time to get through all the academic part of it, but I'll go through. There's this shift, of course, of like mental health versus mental illness versus wellness and well-being. Of course, we are all much better if we think about it as wellness and well-being. And of course, we get much better engagement. James Waldron talked about it in 2007 about the First Nations people and our just cultural, that's always been there, this wellness and resilience and the resilience and laughter. Like I think of all the nations I go to, and if I'm in a health center or a school, the laughter, you know, and just that key laughter where a room can get really tense, and it's very skilled, but it's usually an older person will say something that's funny. and it's not inappropriate. It's just done in a very, very perfect way, and it lightens the room so then people can carry on. And it's not to diminish or dismiss what was said. It lightens that, and that's an important skill. I think it's important for us to consider trauma versus mental illness, and to be really mindful of that. What has happened to you? So these ones, if you were to Google this, reviewing of risk factors, the current state of knowledge and directions for further research, 2015, you'll be able to find that. It's an article from a research company in Canada. So they talk about that there's this inadequate picture of the prevalence of PTSD in Aboriginal populations. And of course there is. This is a bit dated now, it's 2015. But there is, because there's not enough data around it. There's not enough research done around it. So people don't really know. The other thing too about PTSD, and if you have other people in talking about trauma, the actual the Western clinical criteria is based on one-time incidents and combat veterans. So it doesn't consider multi-generational impacts. So some of it doesn't necessarily apply. And it also doesn't look at anything as like resilience and cultural qualities. This is a good book. If you were to Google Renee Linklater, Decolonizing Trauma Work, this was her PhD dissertation, so you'll be able to find this. She has some great quotes, and there's some great pieces in it. I won't have time to go into all of it, but you can find her book. It's free because it's her PhD dissertation. She again focuses on resiliency and looking at resiliency. I have some people saying to me that they don't like that word resiliency anymore. If you go to a website, gonetowar.com, Joseph Gone is a PhD psychiatrist who teaches at Harvard, and he is American Indian from Gros Venture in Montana. He has amazing articles. So if you're interested in more on trauma, recovery, youth suicide, all the gamut of what we face as Indigenous people. He has hundreds of publications, and they're all listed on his website, gonetowar.com. This one, I don't have time to get into it, but he's talking about the background of historical trauma, essentially, and he's asking us to be cautious of it. So these are new publications. And he's asking us to think about, in the 20 years that we've thought about American Indian historical trauma or historical trauma, that we don't just impose something else on ourselves, and that we ground in the strength and the resiliency. And he tells some really cool stories. He tells one about this woman from his community her name was Watchesall. She was interviewed in 1903, again by a cultural anthropologist. And she had been, in the 1800s, had been kidnapped, of course, because the Indian Wars were going on in the 1800s, and the Iron Alliance. And she had been kidnapped, she was raped, she was beaten, a whole bunch of things that we would suspect if she was interviewed in 1907 that she'd talk about trauma. And she didn't. And what he's talking about, and we think about some of those older stories that our great-grandparents talk about, there was extreme resiliency in that time frame, in that time period, especially for like in the Iron Wars and that time, because there were warrior societies. And that trauma didn't have the same lens on it, and the residential schools hadn't happened yet. So there was an amazing amount of resiliency. And he talks about that when we start talking about epigenetics and trauma, that we also have that. And to be mindful of that too, it's not just we didn't start at residential school. We are way thousands and thousands of years before that. So I find his research really good. This is very important. If you were to Google window of tolerance, you can find window of tolerance anywhere. I was driving with my daughter one day, and she asked me, you teach about anxiety, what does that mean? And I basically explained this. We only learn as much as we can heal. And life is a long healing process. So our window of tolerance, hypoarousal is fight, flight, hyperarousal is hypo is freeze. So lots of times, if you think about your classrooms, you'll have students who go in a constant cycle of fight, flight, and freeze. I talk about the band office sometimes. When I'm talking to like other communities, they're like, think about the band office. Everyone's in different points, fight, flight, and freeze. But it's trauma triggers, and that happens. And as we get those, our window of tolerance can get really small. And when our window of tolerance is really small, it's hard to function. And then we can have other times where our window of tolerance is bigger. And some of those skills I gave you of grounding and those other pieces really help us get there. The third story, in closing, is your story. And I hope the things I've talked about help you reflect on what your story is. And your stories are so important. The work you do is so deeply moving and touching, and you get to see so many youth, and you have the ability to change where they're at. And we're often too, sadly, sometimes youth and your students will feel safest with you than other places. And that's okay. I trust and know you're all doing the best you can to hold them and to care for them and to walk with them, beside them. So to think about, how will you come to hold your story? What is the significance of your story? And how will you will you, safely tell your stories in the arena? And how does that impact? And your arenas are classrooms, so you might be telling your stories every day. So your story really, and my story definitely, has been about walking with children and youth and sometimes adults as they heal. Most often I'm with youth. So this is the beginning of the presentation, and trauma in our day-to-day lives, how we've considered how we can collectively find ways to counter trauma, safely reflecting on our own trauma, and walking with others on their journey to wellness. There's one thing I want to do before I'm quite done, and I think I have 2 minutes. We had the honor, as I said, last fall my life changed, and I did not expect it to change. I was quite content on doing counseling, loving it, still love doing counseling work, and I had a couple elders from Cowasis call and ask if I would consider being the CEO for Chief Red Bear's Children Lodge. So of course we are the first First Nation in Canada to have law over child welfare and to have authority over our children. And in doing that, oh, I have 15 more minutes. Oh, okay, well, okay. She said I have 15 more minutes. So I won't hurry then. It was a big thing to have the authority over our children, and big for my story, given that I was raised in care, given that my mom, she was Myrtle Delorme, who was a member of Cowasis, she died in 1971 with a John. So I said to the team that I work with earlier in the week, nobody and there were elders in the room, and I said, how many, lots of you knew my mom, how many of you thought I'd ever be in, any of her children would be in this role? And, they were honest, and they know her, and they're loving and kind Kokums. And they said, no, they didn't, that they wouldn't have thought in 1968 when I was born, that, and knowing my mom, that any of her children would ever be in this role. It's a huge role to be in and to walk with. And I am reminded, since I accepted December 5th, and I'm reminded daily of my own trauma. Because of course, this is my core trauma, of going back to my mother's community, of this goal of there's these 86 kids in care and then 40 post-majority that we want to have in our care instead of being in the Ministry of Social Services care, and how to do that and how to get there. And it's just this interesting thing to watch that. And then everybody who's working with us, everybody's impacted it in a similar way, because of course they're all passionate about it, because child welfare has somehow touched their lives or is touching their lives. And so it's this daily, I don't want to call it a battle, but it is a bit. It's a bit like facing it daily. And I'm sure when you go into a classroom, that's what I was thinking of you guys, especially the past week, there must be days when it feels like that, going into your classrooms, when things have happened in a community and there's loss, or if there's been a death of a child's family member, because of course on reserve, that doesn't just affect one child like it does in Western schools, it affects the whole community, and it affects all of you because everyone's related. So those are big things to think about and to move into. This opportunity to do this is quite big, and I think about it in context of, we have this law that we can start taking authority over our own children, but how are we going to do that? And how do we make sure we do it better? And one of the things we're starting to do is we get to write our own policy. So I'm sure for education, you have lots of policy, and that becomes really key in the work you do. For child welfare across the whole country for First Nations, because of Section 88 in the Indian Act, which is the general law of application, everybody had to follow provincial child welfare law and policy. We're amidst right now writing our own policy. We are the first First Nation in the whole country who's ever got to write our own policy. I find it overwhelming because from the years I worked within child welfare at a policy level, it was so frustrating to have to do the way the province does it. To have the honor right now to be able to do our own is equally as overwhelming because how do we do it? And how do we do it better looking at the current state? So we had, what I wanted to share with you is we had AJ Felix in, and he talked about some key things yesterday that are, that I'll share with you because they're so profound and they're so important in when we're walking with others. And that's going back to the strength of the resilience. And of course, our resilience comes from those behind us, of our great grandparents and our parents. And even though they went through hard times and loss, that they were had extreme richness. I think about my father, he's 89. He has advanced dementia, so he's fun because he'll remember me, but partway through, often when I go to see him, he'll think of my mom, which has led to some conversations that you never want to get into with your dad. Because he thinks that I'm dating him. So it's kind of it's led to some weird conversations. But because I often too won't correct him because it's harder to correct him with advanced dementia. So yeah, it's been kind of funny. But to think about these stories, my dad, through the years I met my dad in my early 20s and mid 20s. And without me meeting my dad, I wouldn't have done the healing that I have done. My dad, at that point in his life, he was 65, he had stopped drinking, he was at a much better place in his life. And that's, of course, the dad that was taken to residential school when he was 4. And as far as I read all the adoption literature, because I was doing my BSW at that time, and it was he did a perfect adoption reunion. He brought me a blanket. He said everything like it was textbook perfect. And of course, he didn't read any of the literature. I can remember being with my dad one day and my son was about 10 and I don't know what I had done. I can't even remember, but I remember he started talking and he looked at the floor. And so I was like, oops. And so I thought, okay, I better look at the floor. And he talked for about a half an hour. And I think it was something that I had said to him and to his partner, and maybe that I hadn't been going over very often. And anyhow, at the end, he finished and he did my girl and, everything was good. But as I was leaving with my son was watching TV. I said, holy, I don't think I've never gotten into that much trouble from Mushum. And my son was like, what? He totally missed it. So if we can think about that, I know it was profound though. He could parent me in my 20s and reparent me in a much more profound way than my non-Indigenous family could. And they were good, they were good parents. My mom was a teacher, they loved me, they kept me safe. But I needed to have my dad and I needed to have that part of my life and that family back. And that way he disciplined was so different because it was so gentle, but I knew it and I can still remember how I felt and I definitely changed how I behaved and what I did. Where I think of being a child and being guilted and shamed, that didn't change anything. That just made me do it more when I was a teenager. So those are some of the ways. My dad says he's not traditional. He says he doesn't follow traditional ways or teachings, but how he has parented me has been, as an adult, has been very traditional. And I've said to my cousins and other family, Kokuma Musha must have been so awesome, just because of how he is. He wasn't like that as a younger man, and I'll say his name sometimes around our territory, and women his age will be like, they'll roll their eyes. I'm like, yeah, I know. I know what he was like when he was young. But so what yesterday, what AJ Felix had shared with us was what I wanted to share with you were 4 gifts and 4 things when we're working with people and we're walking in health, wellness and healing. And the first one was to, I'm just looking for it. Of course I had it here, now I can't see it. Oh, the first one was prayer. So to always remember prayer. And I'm sorry I forgot to thank for the pipe ceremony for the prayers this morning. but that be foundational as prayer, and that we not be afraid to pray wherever we are. So he said, if you're walking down the street, to, look up at the sun or look up wherever and give thanks and to always pray. That's really important for all of us in these roles that we're doing. The second thing is to cry. So another elder from Sturgeon Lake, Willie Ermine, I did a land-based education class with him a couple years ago, and he said one of the biggest gifts we have are our tears. And we think about that, and that's true. That's so important that we are able to cry and to have that healing that comes from crying, and see it as a strength and see it as a gift. He said it's the biggest gift we can give are our tears. He said the third one was that to not harm others and to be kind. He explained it a little differently, but the essence was to not harm others and to always be kind. And the fourth one, one that is always so hard for me as I sat and listened to the bio and introduction, I have a very hard time. In my 20s, I also was with some of my mother's family and aunts and uncles who were very, very firm on being humble. And the fourth thing he shared was being humble. So I have a very hard time talking about achievements or attending them or doing, because I find it very important, that teaching of being humble. So he said those were the four things that we needed to be thinking about, and that in our roles, and that those are foundational. And he also yesterday went over traditional law with us and said that we're quite welcome. He's going to come back and do more traditional law with us, and we can write it. So from a policy perspective, I was asking him, so can our policy actually be grounded in traditional law? And he said, yes, I would hope that your policy is grounded in traditional law. Those are healing, big healing steps. The other, there's, I guess, two other simple things. One is a story that that I have talked about lots, that I had really hard moment in history with my children. And I had called a counselor, and she said, you need to go someplace where you're okay and where you can take, where you and your kids are okay for the weekend. And so as we were doing that, I was lucky I had someplace to go. And as we were doing that, I stopped at Chapters and bought some books. And one was this book about this hummingbird. And this story, my children were quite little then. My daughter just turned 18 last week. Anyhow, one was a story about the hummingbird. And I think it's very key to the work we all do and some of the days we have, and to trauma as well. And she said, so the story is about this hummingbird, that the forest is on fire, and all the animals, of course, are leaving and fleeing because the forest is on fire. And there's this hummingbird going and getting a drop of water and flying and putting it on the fire. And it continues to fly back and forth and back and forth. And one of the other animals finally stops it and asks, what are you doing? Like, come on, the forest is on fire. You got to get out of here. And the little hummingbird says, I'm doing everything I can. And I think, that has been so foundational for me in the work that I've done as a social worker and as an educator, that we do everything that we can. In the days when I walked with Rain and when I thought she was going to die, I would tell myself that story every night of, I'm doing everything I can. So it is so important to remember stories like that and to hold them. The other thing this is not a great recording, but AJ gave us a song yesterday, and he said he gifted us with it for Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge and for the work we're doing. And I'll play it for you. It's not a great recording because I wasn't close to him, but he gave us permission yesterday to record him, and he gifted us with this song.
Wake up, your granddaughter. Look at how you
Oh.
Wake up, my grandson. Wake up, my granddaughter.
Says, wake up, my grandson. Wake up, my granddaughter. Look at the sun and the beauty. Look at how beautiful it sounds. How the sun has come up. How beautiful it is. Nanaskamon. But wake up. We have lots to do. Wake up. So in that I close, and thank you very much for your time, and share that with you that we have lots to do, and I'm so honored to be with all of you. Thank you.
Very, very touching. With every presentation, you know, we open ourselves up to learning, and one takeaway from and all the messages that we're hearing today. And for me, it's like we only learn as much as we can heal, and we're all at different levels. So those words are going to stay with me forever. So thank you very much. Just a little bit more housekeeping before it's break. The QR codes, so the feedback for Noella's session, if you look at the pillars, Khalid is over there, please fill out your feedback forms. If you don't want to put your name, that's fine. It could be anonymous, but they do have huge door prizes Friday afternoon, like huge, really amazing door prizes. So if you want your name in for those door prizes, please put your name in. Okay, so it's just totally up to you. Your anonymity is respected in that sense. They're having things like an Xbox. Oops, sorry, earbuds. Just another reminder: the security at the front of the building, because it is still TCU Place. They're just really mindful and being respectful of our name tags. So if you can just make sure that you have them coming and going of the building. All right, if you don't mind doing that. And so I've got the feedback forms. Okay, and then before before break, just to remind you, in Gallery A is Indigenous Educational Practices with Mika Lafond. In Gallery B is Beating and a New World Collective Climate Change and Adaptation Project with Danae Cheecham and Ulrich and Paul Haynes. In Gallery C is Kevin Peace. It's 2 hours and he's painting. And remember, there's just a limit of 50 people in that session. All right. And then we have in Gallery D is Fireside Chat with Noella Crow Salazar, if you want to listen to more of what she has to say. And I think, is there anything else, Lisa and Patty? Any other last minutes before break? All right, with that, have a wonderful break. Hi.
All right, you guys, there we go. We're going to try and see if we can get down to one of the breakout sessions.
Is the QR code going to work on the screen? Yeah, Jan and Khalid? So the screen, so if you notice, you can go up to it with the camera, with your camera and capture the image, and it allows you to bring up the feedback form.
All All right, so there you guys go. The first half of the morning there of the session is over. Now we're going to be heading into the breakout sessions and try and get you guys viewing some of that. But I hope you guys are enjoying the live here presented by IOPS, as we're always empowering Indigenous success through job boards, live streaming Indigenous events, as well as a clothing company here.
With Nicole Standing Horn, remember you can still sign up outside. They're 15-minute sessions. So please sign up and let's use that real amazing, worthwhile experience. Thank you.
All right, so we got people there doing the QR code. I'm going to actually bring the QR code up on the screen. We don't have any footage from AJ Felix. That was just Noella.
So with Kevin's painting, there's only room for 8. So if you're going to go in there, you should go now and grab your snack.
Yeah, there's no video, they said.
Oh, sorry, correct. Jan corrected me. The healing for 15 minutes is full today, but please sign up tomorrow. Thank you. The healing for the 15 minutes for Nicole's, yeah, they're full today, but you can sign up tomorrow. There'll be openings tomorrow. They're 15 minutes for all day.
So once again, you guys, we're live here at TCU Place here at the Full Circle Conference put on by MLTC. We're live here again in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Here, I got a young man sitting beside me here. He wants to get on camera, he said.
Ella just sent you prizes. You want to switch out the QR code?
The prizes? Oh, they emailed me the prizes? Okay. Good. Yeah. Multitask when you're chatting with people online. Barbnet.
Another update for those that you want to do the photo booth. If you want to do pictures of yourself in the photo booth, and please upload them through Messenger to the full, then they'll be posted to the Facebook page for Full Circle. So again, the photo booth is over there in the corner. I think I might have another message.
The message lady. But yeah, we're going to be putting some prizes on there. There's a QR code. I'm actually going to bring it up right now, you guys, if you could even give some feedback as well.
And if you do put your phone up to the screen, your camera will capture the form. So mine's there already. So thank you.
Yeah. So if you're not watching on your cell phone, maybe even screenshot this and then you can fill out that form online if you guys would like. So there's the QR code there where you can do feedback for the conference, the online as well. If you are here watching on your phone, there you go. You can check that out again. But once again, you guys, we are live here at MLTC Full Circle Conference here at TCU Place, Treaty 6. And we're learning a lot here today. What's your name again? Jan. I got Jan sitting beside me. I'm going to show you guys Jan. There's Jan. You want to chit chat for a quick bit? I'll put you on the spot. We'll just talk what you do. Don't you work with MLTC? There you go. Yeah, turn that on. Putting Jan on the spot here. There, you got to talk.
I do just about anything that everyone.
Can you hear?
I can hear.
There you
Is
go.
that the feedback?
How's that good?
So the question was, what do I do?
Yeah.
I work for MLTC Education.
Yeah. How's
And
that?
I started off as a math science consultant,
Uh-huh.
switched into doing coordinating literacy and numeracy, always doing science in the background, picked up some tech skills, which is why we're talking as much as we are. I'm just trying to support things and make things flow as best as we can.
Yeah.
So that's, in a nutshell, I haven't sat down except to talk to you. No, I had
Yeah,
too much.
he just came down here to tell me something real quick, and as I'm throwing him on the spot, and that's how live feed is.
Yeah.
Live, you just kind of got to go with it and just feel the flow of the conference right now. So that's kind of what we're doing. Jan's kind of being in and out of here.
Yep.
And I will get other interview guys who I will do keynotes and people are just kind of walking around. It's tough though. They get shy.
I'll send a few less shy ones your way.
He's just getting out of here.
I'll bring it. I'll do that for you.
Oh, we got another MLTC member here, I think.
Principal at Clearwater River.
Oh, she's a principal at Clearwater Dene
Wanted someone less shy.
School.
Less shy. I don't know.
So we're just filling in, you guys. We're just filling in some time in back of us, the trade show. Jan, thank you for stopping in. Have a seat there. I'll get this lady's name here. You
Hey.
feeling comfy? You good?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
How's that? You can go closer there like that.
Woo woo.
Woo woo. All right, introduce.
I'm Barb Hanna. I'm the principal up at Clearwater River Dene School.
Oh, I was there last year. My name's Nathan Harris. I was doing the live streaming.
Oh yeah.
That was where I was, right? Was that Buffalo River Dene?
No.
Oh, Clearwater.
Yeah, way north, end of
Way
the road.
farther. Yeah. Okay. I was at the wrong other Dene Nation.
Yes.
So anyway, fill me in about your school, where you work, about this conference.
Well,
Putting
yeah.
you on the spot, but hey, you're a
I
principal.
know.
You're used. I work at a school too, so
So you're used to it.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we're at the end of the road. We got a nice school on our reserve, doing lots of stuff, staying busy. We have some kids here presenting actually for they did a bunch of research with some scientists this summer about the water quality in our area and went up to Cambridge Bay and practiced what they learned in our community. So they're here presenting that today. So I'm just headed off to support them.
Cambridge Bay, is that like a lake near?
Cambridge Bay is actually up in the Arctic. So they did an exchange with the
wow.
CHARS Arctic Research Center and got to go up there and meet some elders and work with them
You know,
and the scientists at the research center.
it's like so I work at my reserve school is Clifford Whitney School
Okay.
and Red Pheasant First Nation and Cree Nation. And my buddy Willis Janvier is
Mhm.
from
Yeah.
Clearwater Dene. And that's who actually invited me last year to that conference. And it's kind of like it's almost like a different life up north. You think, PA is farther north as a lot of people go, but when you really go up north, it's the people are so kind. But one, there's like no internet, or so not internet, no cell service. I got used to that, and I got used to Wi-Fi phoning or something like it.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody has their Apple products so
Yeah.
that they can messenger each other.
Yeah, but I mean, such a beautiful country up there. The people are just unreal awesome up there. Just like we were so welcomed when we got there, and just the Dene people are very welcoming with who they are, and so it was nice to experience that. So
Yeah.
how long have you been up there
This is my 22nd year.
as a principal up there?
As
just
I'm
working?
just working up there. So this is my
Wow.
first year as a principal. I was the vice principal for about 10 years
Yeah.
and then teaching 10 years before that.
So two things I'm going to ask you: are you married up there?
I am.
Married into the community?
No, I moved to the community with my high school
Oh.
boyfriend. So
Oh, you're one of the lucky few.
yeah,
So the other thing is, how much Dene can you speak?
terrible.
And
I'm terrible. Before we moved, me and my husband moved up to where we are. We worked on a fly-in reserve in Northern Ontario that
Yeah.
spoke Ojibwe. And in 2 years, he was
Fluent?
incredibly,
Yeah.
picked it up. I picked up like the minor stuff,
Yeah,
like
yeah. All the
come
swear
here,
words.
sit down, like all the stuff that kids will share with
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But Dene is so tricky. It's so different.
It's like my buddy, like Willis Janvier. If you guys don't know, he's Dene Yate podcast. He
Yep.
speaks fluent Dene, and that's how I actually met him. I was watching a YouTube channel and I seen him pop up, and then we started hanging out. We do the same thing, but he tried teaching me a few words, and as far as I got, it was at Lanate and Nezu. I know Nezu means good or great, and then Lanate is like hello.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just how they speak, it's like kind of like that, and it's like that's hard.
Yeah, both my kids are fluent.
Oh,
they
really?
they can both speak
Yeah.
and
Well, they grew up
understand
there,
no
right?
problem. They grew up there.
Yeah, it's
So
easy for kids.
it's if we
Yeah.
start young,
Yeah.
that's where we're going to keep the language alive, right?
And exactly. And you guys, if you're watching, podcasting is such a huge thing now, and that's what I'm trying to. I started. I'm big into podcasting. I started a school podcast at our school for
Oh.
Cree, for our Cree teacher, and she loves it. So every morning she's just talking Cree. She's speaking to Hewan, and try to keep it going, right? And because we got to think about in 100 years, this will still be online,
Absolutely.
right? And I get it with the old ways, we just hear oral history, but this is kind of like a hybrid. And we're at a point now where we have to do something. We can't just talk about it anymore. It's like, hey, do it.
Yeah.
'Cause if we're not doing it now, trying to save that language, it's
Oh,
like
absolutely.
it's too. I think we're a generation or a generation and a half away. They said from it disappearing forever.
Exactly. Like when I first moved there, 20 years ago, you wouldn't hear English spoken anywhere, nowhere. And now it's just our elders who are
Yeah.
speaking it. Our kids, don't get me wrong, their understanding is still there. And we're in an immersion school, so
Yeah.
they'll speak it in school because they need to, but we
Yeah.
need to keep it alive elsewhere in order to make sure that we maintain it, right? We're just one school in our community, and so
So here's an idea, and you guys, whoever's watching, might, I don't know, disagree or agree with me. So I've been working in a school. I'm a social worker.
okay.
I've been working in a school for 7 years now, and it was like a big game changer for me because I went from frontline work to all of a sudden I'm just, and as a guidance counselor per se, but I'm really into tech. I'm really into the what's new kind of thing, and I was kind of like the first one introducing TikTok even to the kids. I was like, "Do kids hear about TikTok? It's pretty cool." They're like, "No." Anyway, so to me, I really think we need to use tech as a good way to kind of like you were saying. I was just playing through my head, like you're saying, like kids talk, they go to school during the day, but after school it's kind of like English. I'm guessing you're saying, right?
Yeah, because so much of their, like you say, their electronic play, their game play, their TV is in English.
So let's think there. Let's go. And I've suggested this to two directors. We should have an Indigenous creator conference for teachers and other people that work with youth, because imagine these Dene kids. I'm using Dene because we have a lot of Dene brothers and sisters here. Imagine if we taught them, okay, this is how you do YouTube. This is how you content create. But please use Dene when you speak. So now when the kids are going after school, they're only watching Dene YouTube content, TikTok Dene content. You know what I mean? All in Dene, right?
And they're sharing it all with each
And
other,
they're
right?
sharing.
And learning from each other, which is awesome, right?
There was some Inuit kids that went viral. I don't know if you've seen that little rap video. I think they were probably, I'm going to say 10 years old. One would look like he was 8. And they were both rapping. I'm pretty sure that sounded like Inuit, right?
Yep.
But I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we need to push, right? Like
Promote.
promote, right? Like saving the language and getting these kids interested. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be great. That's exactly what we
Yeah.
need to do. Keep
But
pumping it up and promoting it, and
exactly.
use it or lose it, right?
Use it or lose it is exactly it. But I won't keep you longer. We're just kind of going on a whim here. I know you said you're going to go support your students, right?
Yep. I'm heading over there now, and I
Alright.
think Jan might have got someone else lined up
Oh,
for
I
you.
guess we got somebody else. Just going to keep them coming. Right on. If you guys have any questions online, feel free to ask away.
I put it on your table.
Got everyone just chit-chatting in the back here. So,
Put the headphones on.
but anyway, we are live here right now at TCU Place here for the Full Circle Conference here for educators and admin. And I don't know who I got. Melinda Hoff, right? You're going to have to go a little closer there with that thing. There you go. That way. Dance.
Benanto, ¿qué maca?
Good. Nathan there's from Red Pheasant, and Hoff, I'm going to say you're from Magua.
I am.
So go ahead, introduce yourself, what you do, where you work, all that fun stuff.
Okay. Melinda Hoff, Ntsigasun. I am from Makwasagagan, and I work with the Middle Lake Tribal Council as the Cree language consultant.
Oh, okay, cool. How long have you been there?
I've been there since January.
Who's your son? I know a Hoff.
Lyndon?
Lyndon, yes, that's what I was going to say. Is Lyndon your son?
Uh-huh.
I've known Lyndon for quite a few years, actually. But So you're the Cree consultant,
I
and I
am.
was just talking to the principal here, and we were talking about keeping our language alive. I don't know if you know Brenda Albert from Sweetgrass. Is that bugging your ear, or is that too loud?
It is.
Oh, it's tight on you. Go ahead and fix it comfy here. We're not in a rush. How's that? Better?
It's a little better. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is your mic there.
Okay.
There you go. How's that?
It's better.
So I work at a school, Clifford Lundy School, in Red
Okay.
Pheasant, right? That's
Mhm.
from my community. And we were just talking about language. So she's a principal up north in Clearwater Dene Nation, and we're talking about obviously Dene language. But I told her that I started a podcast for our school, and I'm
Mhm.
kind of pushing, and I've been pushing language speakers that are fluent to get out there and start podcasts. You don't even have to go on TV like this,
Mhm.
but maybe just do an audio, because me and my girlfriend were driving back from Edmonton, and we were wanted to listen to our language. We're both Cree,
Mhm.
and we wanted to just hear it, right? Because that's all you want to do sometimes, just hear it, because you pick up pieces, right? But that's how we learn. We listen. We couldn't find nothing.
Mhm.
My friend Dene Ate Willis Janve does a Dene podcast. He's
Mhm.
on Spotify and all the thing. What are your thoughts about that?
Nesta, I totally agree with you. Mistakes and kamiwiting. I think, for myself, I was fortunate to have grown up with language all around me, right? I The language was in my home, the language was in my community. We don't have enough. And as a consultant for Middle Lake Tribal Council, that's a direction we're going. So it's everywhere for our kids.
Mm. No, I agree, and that's kind of thing I was going to suggest to the next year
Mhm.
is that instead of having, when you go to conferences, you kind of already know what's going to happen, the flow of it, and some of the topics. But one of the topics I wanted to really push is technology
Mhm.
into education, because I've been out of school for 7 years, and I'm kind of like the go-to guy for tech. I'm
Mhm.
introducing all these cool things. I'm introducing podcasts. I think that. What do you think? Like, to have a conference just about technology and education and how we can improve our lives, or not our lives? Sorry, our the way we, I guess, deliver education to our youth.
Kakwek miwasan. I agree.
Mhm.
And I would truly support that. And again, I'm going to share what we're doing at the Tribal Council. We've created apps, mobile apps for our students. Some of the communities have completed the app, where the app would have, like it has different 12 different categories. And again, they see the picture, they hear the word, and they see the word.
Mm.
And not only that, they have the syllabics. So again, I think we're already on the right path. It's just building from here on.
Mhm. And that's where we have to bring in TikTok. You heard of TikTok?
Yes.
Are you on TikTok? Do you
No, I'm
scroll?
not.
Are you one of the people that stay till they try to go to bed at 9, and all of a sudden it's 2 in the morning, and they're like, oh. But see, utilizing like that, the apps, which
Mhm.
are good. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with them. I,
Mhm.
I, I agree. But I think honestly, truly, kids are only going to use them during the day when they kind of have to during at
Mhm.
school. If we can normalize, the kids going on TikTok at school to show, look, you learned this Cree word at school today. Let's make a TikTok.
Mhm.
So that way, that TikTok might be going viral, right?
Mhm.
Like that one native young man there. I forget where he's from, Alexander. But he's just dancing in a mirror, and it was literally for like 10 seconds, and then that TikTok went viral all around the world. I think it's seen 500 million times, like celebrities and everything. But the cool thing is he's in the powwow. So all the other videos people were watching were the powwow. So they're kind of learning about, our culture and stuff, right?
Mhm.
So that's what I mean. That would be something I think we should start looking at. Like, hey kids, Cree word of the day, put it on TikTok. And these kids
Exactly.
know how to do, they're so smart with technology, right?
Well, and this is, you're giving us direction. We need that direction to
Yeah.
continue building.
Yes.
Right?
I'm your guy.
Exactly.
I'm your guy.
You're our guy.
I'm the guy for technology and yeah. I was just telling my girl, I was like, I'm surprised sometimes at how much I know in tech. Like sometimes you don't know how much you know until you start telling someone. You just sit there like, wow.
That way.
Yeah. Top way. But up sis Cree, I really want to expand. My mom is fluent and we're like I was talking with that lady before. We're like a generation away from it, you know. I don't know how you say gone in Cree, but it's like, there won't be mustache. It's like that's it. So it's me like pressing again, like doing this podcast, like how can we get this going? So
It's gatherings like this.
yes, exactly.
Right? And it's, sitting down with knowledge keepers, language keepers, and just learning off one another.
It would be nice to it's so nice to hear any indigenous language, especially Cree. But I mean, just to hear it spoken fluently, and there's laughs, and there's always that Indian humor, right?
Exactly.
And when my coworker Brenda does bring on other fluent speakers from my reserve, it's storytelling, but then the jokes start coming out, eh? But it's you catch words here and there, but to just have people to experience that, it's such a beautiful thing. But are you enjoying your time here so far?
I am.
And we're only on day one.
That way.
3 days. So which one are you going to be attending downstairs? Any of them?
I think I'm going to the one with Mika Lafon.
Oh, Mika.
Yes.
Yeah, I've known Mika for many, many years as well. Yeah. I was supposed to live stream one of her events, but something came up and I couldn't do it. But I'll have to get her on here. But anyway, Tapwe, it was nice meeting you. And I'm going to be here for 3 days. So if you want to pop in and say hi, don't be shy. Don't be shy.
How?
Your son ain't shy, so you can't be shy.
Hi.
All right. All right, you guys, there we go. Just had this young lady, Melinda Hoff, here from Magua, Sagaitin. And did I say that right? Sagaitin? How do you say it? Sagaigan. Magua, Sagaigan. All right. I always say that wrong. Magua, Sagaigan. So there you guys go. We are live here right now. There's some vendors in the back. I'm going to kind of zoom in here. Full Circle Conference here at TCU Place live in Saskatoon. We're just showing you guys right now what you can check out at the trade show. I'm also selling some IOP sweaters here, flowing all the way in. Got Nipsey as well. They're here. Got some awesome, beautiful birch bark, I think that is. So, there you guys go. That's what you can check out here. Right now, everyone is downstairs on the other events that are going on. So I am live. I'm just seeing if I can get maybe one more person. Everyone's standing around wondering what's going on, trying to be nosy. I know they want to get in. Get them on camera. Trying to see anybody here That's the thing. That's the thing when you're live. It's a lot of people are shy. I've been doing this for so long that it's nothing really gets me too intimidated. But I think we're gonna end the live right now and maybe come back to you. I'm not sure. I think that's what we're gonna do. And when we do come back, be good to see you again. But that's it. We'll see you soon.